All right. Well, good evening. Thank you for taking time to join me today. This session is just an overview of the 3MT competition. We'll start from the basics of what does 3MT stand for. We'll look at some examples and think about like what are some strengths, what are some weaknesses of the examples that we see. I'll go through some tips on how to prepare to enter the competition, and then I will give you the dates for our competition. Also, this video will be posted on our YouTube channel so that we'll be able to share it more broadly with people that might be interested. And also by signing up for this particular webinar, we will be sure to send you as a follow-up the links that we have in this presentation, as well as the handout. There's a Google Doc that will send you that has a lot of the information on it. So let's go ahead and get started. So in terms of what is 3MT, right? So you're here, what is 3MT? What does it stand for? What is it all about? It's actually part of a competition that started with the University of Queensland in Australia and has spread to be a competition that occurs all around the globe. 3MT actually stands for 3-minute thesis. And the idea is that as a competitor, you present your research within a 3-minute time span, which sometimes it's really hard to think about taking all of that work and bringing it down into 3 minutes. But also when you're doing it, you'll be talking to an audience that of non-specialists. So you cannot use all the jargon that might be associated with your discipline. And you have to think about not only using language that just a regular person would understand, but also drawing them into it so that they'd be motivated to listen. So really trying to hook their attention, gain their interest, and share your work. There are lots of reasons to compete. I have this video, it's linked in here, and I'm worried that if I click on the link, it's not going to share. So I'm actually not going to do that. But this particular person that you see in this picture won like the international competition. So the way this works is we start with our university competition, and whoever wins for our university then goes to our regional, which this year's regional competition will be in Tampa, Florida, and it's the 1st of March. So that person would go to Tampa. I'll be there, and there'll be other graduate students there, and you compete. The winner from that regional competition then goes to the national competition. So that would, I don't know when that is, but it'd probably be in a year. And then like the winner of the national competition would get to compete globally. And this person in this particular video won globally. And so she talks about like all of the benefits to competing. Like one is just being able to articulate your ideas and gain that experience. But then as she's moved through it, she had people contacting her, wanting her to consult and do different things. So it was really a great opportunity for her to grow as a professional. And I think, you know, whether you make it to that international competition or not, it is a wonderful opportunity to interact with others, share your work, and begin building a network, a professional network. In terms of why compete, so I have some bulleted ideas on here. Obviously, it enhances your CV just to be able to, or curriculum vitae or your resume, just to compete is an enhancement. But then if you win, that's even a bigger deal that you can talk about and improve your chances for gaining a job. Like I've already said, it gives you a chance to promote your work and begin building that network. In addition, it increases your capacity to effectively explain your research. I know that for some of us, we get really, really dig deep into our work, and we get so caught up in here that we can't step back and be able to talk about it and like give that 2-minute elevator speech. And yet a lot of our funders like NSF, they want to see your dissemination plan for how you can communicate the worthwhileness of your findings to the lay person. So this is an opportunity for you to gain skills in that area. This first example that we're going to look at 2 examples, and this one is Billy Huggins, and he was in the Department of Biology. He graduated a couple of years ago, and he actually won. This was our first competition that we had, and he was our winner. And so I would like to show this and have you just think about what are some of the aspects of this example. What do you see that draws you in? Um, what do you see that maybe turns you off? So just take a moment and think about this as you listen in, and it should be no more than 3 minutes.
Where do you get your daily dose of vitamin D? You may be thinking, what are you talking about? I get vitamin D the same place I get all my other vitamins, through my food. But this might not necessarily be true, as vitamin D is really only minimally obtained through the diet. Instead, the main source of vitamin D in our bodies is through our skin's exposure to UVB radiation, which is found in sunlight. And because of this, it may be true that Americans are becoming increasingly more deficient in this essential vitamin with time. This is because we spend most of our time inside, in houses, in our workspaces, grocery stores, etc. This deficiency could have real health implications, as vitamin D deficiency is known to cause skeletal disease, like rickets and brittle bones. However, vitamin D deficiency has also recently been associated with a variety of age-related diseases. These are things like cardiovascular disease, neurodegeneration like Alzheimer's and dementia, and more. And because of this association, it's led some to believe and to claim that vitamin D is what we call a longevity vitamin, essential for promoting healthy aging. So this is the hypothesis that I wanted to test. Is vitamin D really an essential longevity vitamin? And in order to answer this question, I turned to the model organism C. elegans. Now, C. elegans are tiny nematode worms, but you'd be surprised how similar they are to humans. In fact, many of the genetic mechanisms that govern longevity in the worms also govern longevity in humans. So my research is asking 3 fundamental questions. 1. Can vitamin D extend the lifespan of the C. elegans? 2. Can it extend their health span, which is the amount of time that they're healthy? And then 3. What are the genetic mechanisms behind these responses? So my first question was about if vitamin D could extend the lifespan of the C. elegans. And as it turns out, according to data we've collected in our research lab, vitamin D seems to be able to modestly extend the lifespan of the worms, which is amazing. The next questions we're currently experimenting with right now is, can it extend their health span? And we're even testing this in a strain of worms that's engineered to represent Alzheimer's disease. The final question we're investigating is, what are the genetic mechanisms that make this happen? If the genetic mechanisms that lead to lifespan extension in the worms upon treatment to vitamin D are similar to mechanisms that exist in humans, we can use these and target them as we move forward to try and treat age-related disease that's associated with vitamin D deficiency.
All right. So that was Billy's presentation that he presented to campus, and he won for our campus. Now, there are some things that he can improve on, and hopefully I'll remember to talk about that in just a minute. There's definitely some strengths that we see in that particular example. So just take a moment to think about some of the things that you noticed. And now we're going to watch a second example. And I'll be honest, this is a fictional example. This is Sydney, our graduate student, and we said, do a 3MT that's not the greatest. And so let's listen in. It'll be no more than 3 minutes. And let's think about why would we label this one as not the best example to follow.
The stereotype of the starving artist is dead as the internet grows and creates new ways for creative professionals to make money off of their ambitions. Through websites like Patreon and GoFundMe, individuals need only find an audience willing to fund their ambitions in order to make money off of it. This can range from raising money for a series of projects to funding an entire online business. It also shines a new light on the publishing industry, specifically the self-publishing industry. This access to public funding, combined with the ever-growing digital age and decline in print, will lead to a new age of patronage where individual writers need not worry over query letters, portions of their royalties being taken away, or gatekeeping caused by the big publishing companies. There's a significant rise in the number of writers making names of themselves through publicly funded self-publishing projects. This is because as their funds rise, so does their audience. The one thing self-published writers often fell short on before access to crowdfunding websites. What I noticed as a result of this is the emergence of a new publication model that will provide more opportunity for individuals whose voice is often silenced before they ever get a chance to speak. I've drawn up steps that illustrate this new model and the potential effects it will have on the emerging writers in the publishing industry, as well as the diverse voices that are often silenced. Without Penguin Random House, HarperCollins, and Simon & Schuster gatekeeping emerging writers, the selection you browse at Barnes & Noble will likely become more diverse and include a wider range of writers, artists, and individuals who wanted to make their voice heard by a larger audience. With the writing landscape diversification, more room will be created for minority writers and emerging writers in classrooms, book clubs, and seminar discussions. This will also lead to further dismantling of the literary canon, which will further the representation of these writers in literature of the past, present, and the future. Thank you.
So take a moment just to reflect on what you noticed in our second example. So I'm going to share some thoughts that I have and thinking about those two, and do it in a way that is, these are things that we've learned that would make for a strong 3MT presentation, or maybe they're things that we've learned that don't lead to a strong presentation, so we shouldn't be doing those. So the first one is voice and enthusiasm. So when we listened to the first one, Billy, very much, you could tell that there were inflections in his tone. He was speaking with confidence. He was talking out loud. In the second one, Sydney, she's a great actor because she was really calm and really soft-spoken. And in doing that and in speaking that way, she did not really draw us into her topic. So voice and tone, enthusiasm all matter in this presentation. Presence on stage, I really thought that Billy did a nice job of looking into the camera, whereas Sydney seemed to be reading what she was saying. And so making eye contact is important. And although we'll be doing this virtually, if you advance to the next round of competition, it will be done in person. And so you have to be able to stand up tall and stand, with presence on stage. And wardrobe matters. Billy had his tie, Sydney had on a t-shirt. And so those are important things. Business attire is a part of the expectations. Clarity. Billy attempted to help us to understand, like in layman's terms, this idea of vitamin D. We've all heard of vitamins, we've heard of the sun, connecting it to bones and things of that nature all drew us in. Sydney's topic is a really important, like this idea of all voices being heard through the publishing industry, but we kind of got lost in some of the jargon, and honestly, like the tone of the conversation was like I was going to sleep. Maybe it's because it's the end of the day, but anyway, so clarity is important. Providing impact in your results is also important. And then the PowerPoint slide is important. So Billy's presentation, and I mentioned there were some things that we had to work with him afterwards. One of those was getting his PowerPoint slide. And I believe that this picture up here on the top is where we ended up with a picture, something similar to that. So that he had that for his next level of competition. But, compare that to what Sydney had on her slide, and there's just a lot of stuff going on in there, and it actually becomes confusing and distracting. Whereas the top one is more of like, okay, what's going on here? What's happening? I want to hear more to try to figure out how that connects to the presentation. When you start drafting your 3MT presentation, you have to keep in mind your audience. We've mentioned avoiding jargon and academic language. But imagine you're explaining your research to a friend, and not all of us have friends in our own discipline. So you want to explain it to that person, convey your enthusiasm and your excitement. And you're basically telling your story. A lot of times students will start off talking about like how they were drawn in to this particular research and then what they studied and what they found out. So it is your story, and it's your moment to tell that story. Make sure that you want to know what the outcome is. Like, what is it that you want folks to walk away with in the end, and make sure that that's what comes out as you tell your story. And then before you video your 3MT for our campus competition, just make sure that you proof your presentation. Make sure that you are, whatever's on your slide looks good, is clear. If there are words, they are spelled correctly. Whatever you're saying, put that down in writing, rehearse it so that it becomes a natural part of you talking. Make sure that you're using correct grammar as you talk. Get feedback from people, practice with your friends, practice with your family, practice with your colleagues in your department, and get as much feedback as you can so that by the time you're ready to record and actually compete, then you're feeling really good about it. Some things not to do: don't write your presentation like it's an academic paper. And we've said, don't have the complex words. You can use some humor, but be careful. You don't want to devalue your presentation. And sometimes when we crack jokes, we're being sarcastic, but this is not a space for sarcasm. And then again, make sure your slide that you create is not cluttered or hard to read. So in the 3MT presentation, you have one slide. That's it. And it's a static slide, so there's no moving parts to it. These are examples of slides that we pulled from other 3MT, competitions. And you can see, like, you look at them and you might have an idea of what their study is about. You're not really sure, but they do gain your interest, I would think. And so this is what we're after in terms of your slide for your presentation. The timeline that we have. So if you're planning to compete, we ask that you register, and the deadline for registering is Saturday, October 29th. Registration means just filling out our online form, and it's available on the graduate school's website under the student tab where it says 3MT. Then the materials that you create for the 3MT are due on Thursday, November 10th of this year. After you register, you'll get more information. It'll come in the form of emails. You'll be hearing from either Sydney, who was featured in one of the earlier videos, or Sumit, who's another one of our graduate assistants in the graduate school. They'll contact you and make it very clear what the expectations are. But basically, to be able to compete in our campus competition, we're asking you to create that video of you talking for 3 minutes about your research. The good thing now is we've done this for 2 years, and so there are examples on our YouTube channel from last year's competition and the year before. And I'm pretty sure that if you watch those, you'll watch them and think, not only can I do that, but I can do it better. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to look at the previous ones and think about how to improve on those. I mentioned earlier that after Billy won, we had to talk with him a little bit about how to improve for the next level of competition. And for example, if you paid attention when he was talking, he talked a lot about we. So we hypothesized and we researched. Well, that's something that he needed to improve on because this was about him and his research. So he had to work on saying, I hypothesized and I did this. So there are some small things that we can always improve on. And then there's some large things too. And if you look back at some of our previous 3MT competitors, you'll see ways that they can improve, and that will inform your work as well. The actual competition. So you'll submit your materials, which is really just your slide, and then the video of you, preferably with the slide in the video, to us. And again, Sumit or Sydney will reach out to you and give you the details of that by Thursday, November 2nd. We then make those materials available to our judging team, We have 3 faculty that will be judging. Actually, let me take that back. We have 2 faculty members, and then our 3rd person is a former 3MT winner for our campus. So those make up our judging team. They watch the videos and they decide who will be the winner for our 3MT competition. We also make the videos available to campus to watch, and then we ask them to vote so that we can see who the campus would select as the winner of our 3MT competition. And then on Tuesday, November 15th, that's labeled as our competition day, but it's actually on that day that we will reveal the winner, and that would be at 1 o'clock. As I mentioned at the beginning, we have several resources that we will share with you probably in the coming days. One will be this recording, so we'll get this loaded onto the YouTube channel and we'll send you that link. We do have a handout that summarizes a lot of the information that was in this PowerPoint, as well as providing other pieces of information. And so that is in a Google Doc, and so you'll receive a link to that. We have selected some examples of 3MT submissions for you to watch, and so you'll get links for each of those so that you can watch and learn more. But also, again, I encourage you to look at the ones on the UCA Graduate School's YouTube channel to see what our previous competitors submitted. So with that, I'm just going to close this out. And if there are questions that you have, I want to encourage you to reach out to me via email, or you can reach out to Sydney or Sumit, but they'll be definitely reaching out to you. Your next step is to complete the registration form. And again, that's available on the graduate school website under the student tab under 3MT. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you have a really wonderful, wonderful evening.